Hello everyone and welcome back to What's with the World. I'm your podcast host, Bella, and today we are going to be talking about the 2020 presidential debate. And I first want to start out this episode with an interactive activity. So I'm going to ask you a few questions and I want you to try to answer them. It will be a little harder for you to answer them if you didn't watch the debate, but if you did, I'm going to ask you a few questions about it and you just try to guess to the best of your ability. So my first question is, guess how many times Trump interrupted Biden? The answer is 57 times. My second question is, how many times did Biden interrupt Trump? The answer is 29 times. Third question, how many times did Trump personally attack Biden? The answer is 12 times. And fourth question, how many times do you think that Biden personally attacked Trump? The answer is 10 times. And my last question is, how many times did Donald Trump argue with the moderator? The answer is 25 times. So I wanted to start this episode off by asking those questions just to set a precedent for what this debate was like. If you could even call it that, because a lot of news sources I watched after having seen the debate were all saying that this was the worst debate in America's history. It wasn't even debate, it was just people arguing. There was not a lot being accomplished, which personally I would have to agree. I tried to take notes throughout the debate, but it was very hard to hear what each candidate had to say because they were either talking over one another or they were not really answering the questions that the moderator had proposed. So in case you didn't catch it, today we are going to be doing an overview on some of the main topics discussed during the debate and the candidates' stances or opinions on the topics that were brought up. First, let's talk about President Trump and Vice President Biden's opinions on the Supreme Court. So, as you know, if you had watched last week's episode or if you've been caught up on the news recently, Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg has passed away. So one of the topics that was brought up during the debate by the moderator was what the candidates thought about filling her seat. So Biden says that Ruth Bader Ginsburg's seat should not be filled until the next election. And he says this because he believes that the American people should express their view for the Supreme Court through first electing a president, because as most of us know, the president is in charge of appointing Supreme Court justices. So Congress decides how many seats there are allowed to be in the Supreme Court, and the president appoints a new justice. So because an election is coming up so soon, Biden says that we need to wait, or that Trump needs to wait to appoint a Supreme Court justice until after the debate. And if he wins, fine, he can appoint a justice that he would like. But if Biden wins, he should be able to appoint a Democratic judge. So I hope that you see why that's important, because as of right now, there's an overwhelming ratio of Republicans to Democrats in the Supreme Court. There are a lot more conservative views and a lot more Republicans in the seats. So Biden says that we need to wait because the American people should be able to vote whether they want a Democratic or Republican president. And based off of that, the president will appoint a judge who shares their values, and in turn shares the values of the American people. So on the other hand, Trump believes that it is not an abuse of power for him to appoint a Supreme Court justice as of right now. So Biden says that it is an abuse of power because he is silencing the American people. He is not allowing them to decide because, first, there is an election very, very soon. So he's saying Biden is saying that it is an abuse of power by President Trump to appoint a Supreme Court justice before the election takes place. And Trump is saying, no, it's not. It's in my constitutional right to appoint a Supreme Court justice in the case that one has died. So that's what's happening right now. I'll allow you to decide your own opinion on that, if it is an abuse of power for Trump to appoint a new justice before the election, or if you agree with Biden that he should wait so that the American people can be more properly represented. Just want to say another reason why this is so important is that when a Supreme Court justice is appointed into the Supreme Court, it's for life. there is no election of the Supreme Court justice. The only way that they can be removed from their place of authority is if they are tried by Congress and decided that they have abused their powers or have broken the Constitution. But other than that, if you are appointed as a Supreme Court justice, you are there for the rest of your life until you die. Why this is such a big deal is that if Trump appoints a conservative justice, then they're there for life. They're there representing a conservative side for the rest of their life, and there's already a lot of conservatives in the Supreme Court. So that is why Biden's saying we need to wait, because this is a very big decision that will affect our judiciary system, and we should be able to represent the American people. So those were the main takeaways that I got from the topic of discussing the Supreme Court. So let's move on to healthcare. And in this section, Biden voiced his opinion about Obamacare, and he says that he wants to expand the Affordable Care Act, aka Obamacare. And if you don't know what this is, it's basically an act that requires U.S. families to have health insurance, or they have to pay a tax penalty. So basically the object of this act, what they want to accomplish is they want to reduce or hinder the uncompensated care for the average US family and what they pay. So Biden wants to expand this. He wants to get more families affordable health insurance, but Trump wants to stop Obamacare. He wants to put an end to this. And this was a big part of his 2016 presidential campaign, is that he promised that he was going to end Obamacare and replace it with his own health care plan that was going to be bigger and better, or whatever you want to call it. But it is now going into his final time as the president, as we're nearing the end of his 4-year term, and he still has not ended Obamacare. And that's why a lot of his supporters are kind of upset with him, is because he hasn't been fulfilling the promises that he has said, such as ending Obamacare or building a wall on the southern border and making Mexico pay for it. So those were some topics brought up during the debate as well by Biden, saying that how can you trust Trump to do what he's saying here if he hasn't even accomplished the things that he promised to do during his 4-year term back in the 2016 election. Some miscellaneous facts that I happened to hear over the talking over each other during the debate is that Biden brought up how Trump's recession has cost 10 million employees their free healthcare benefits. And he also said that 20 million people are currently using Obamacare. So it's not right to take that health insurance and that Affordable Care Act benefits away from those 20 million people. And Biden also brought up how Donald Trump has not lowered drug costs, which is another thing he had promised to do during his 2016 campaign, is to lower drug costs, but he hasn't. One of the things that Trump did say he has done, though, is he has gotten insulin for very, very cheap. He said he has gotten it to be as cheap as water. If that's true, I'm not exactly sure. I haven't seen anyone fact check that, but those are just some points that were also brought up during this segment. So still on the topic of health, but more specifically, now we're going to move on to the segment where they talked about COVID and some of the things that Biden had to say about Trump, where this was kind of the part in the debate that I was talking about where they weren't really answering the questions that the moderator had proposed to them. They were more so talking about how the other person, what their plan was faulty or how they aren't really doing anything. So what Biden had to say about Trump was that he has no plan, and the fact that he said it is what it is about COVID was very disrespectful and ignorant. And it's kind of not proposing a solution to the problem by just saying it is what it is, you can't really do anything about it. And Biden also said that Trump did not warn the American people when COVID was first on American soil. He didn't want to scare anyone. He didn't want the economy to shut down. So he didn't warn the Americans, and he didn't make it seem a big of a deal as it is. Trump also blames COVID on China. In fact, during the debate, he called coronavirus the Chinese plague, which he has done repeatedly in other interviews and other public settings, and he has been repeatedly told that it is racist and offensive, but he still continues to say it. He said it during the debate, and What Trump had to say about COVID was that he was providing gowns, masks, ventilators, which is something that we did not have enough of in America when the virus first came, which is true. He did provide a lot of masks and ventilators and gowns that were necessary. Trump also blamed coronavirus on fake news. He said that they were making it a bigger deal than it actually was, and he didn't want to show his panic to the Americans because he didn't want the stock market to crash. He wanted to keep the economy great, and he said that he has brought us back to having the greatest economy. Some of the things that he had to say about Biden was that if Biden gets elected president, he is going to shut down the country again and therefore destroy the economy. But what Biden had to say as a rebuttal to that was that we cannot have a great economy until we get rid of COVID. That's not a direct quote, but that's basically what he was saying, is that first we have to focus on getting rid of the problem at hand. We have to get rid of COVID in order to have a successful and strong economy once again. He's saying that by Trump keeping stores open as of right now and the way he handled COVID is not good. It's causing it to spread more. And this is actually pretty factual because if you look at the statistics, America only makes up 4% of the world's population, yet we have 20% of the COVID cases. So obviously we're doing something wrong. Obviously this plan that we have is not working. So Biden is saying we have to stop doing what we are doing right now. We cannot have stores open anymore. We can still order takeout and everything, but we cannot be having sit-down restaurants like we are having right now. We cannot be walking in public. And if you are, and Trump is saying it's okay to have things open as long as you're wearing a mask, as long as you're washing your hands, as long as you're social distancing. But once again, Vice President Biden is saying, no, we can't even have that because it's not helping. We have to shut everything down and we have to keep people safe. Even if that means closing schools, we have to keep everyone safe and we have to get rid of coronavirus before we can start opening up the economy again. Because as of right now, yes, we are making money. We do have a stable economy as opposed to when COVID was first here, but it's not going to remain that way. Biden also said that Nancy Pelosi has proposed a plan to stop or hinder the spread of COVID, but Trump has refused to meet with her and her team. And Biden brought up how, Trump is golfing, he's going out, he's making these big rallies, but he's refusing to sit down and actually make a plan to stop COVID. Let's move on to the segment about economy. So, in this segment, Biden basically brought up how Trump does not care about small businesses. He cares about making the bigger corporations richer, and he doesn't really focus on small businesses. He more turns a blind eye to them. And because of this, we can see in statistics that a lot of small businesses have been closing down during this pandemic. And Biden says that Trump isn't really doing anything to fix this problem. He just cares about making the richer rich. This is shown in Trump's free market plan, which lowers taxes, but because of this, the rich don't have to pay as much taxes compared to their overall income. So let's say, this is totally wrong, but just to put it on a smaller scale, let's say rich people make $100 a year and poor people make $10 a year, but they both have to pay the same amount of taxes. They both have to pay $3. To the rich people, that's not really a big deal. That's nothing compared to their total income. But for the poor people, that's a big majority. So Biden brought this up of how his free market plan is only going to, again, make the rich richer. And the poor are going to stay poor, so they aren't really allowed that room to grow. So Biden wants to focus on big taxes and big spending on people making over $400,000 annually. So if you're considered rich, if you're making over $400,000 a year, you're going to have to pay higher taxes. And I'll let you decide if that's something you agree with. Should the richer be required to pay more taxes than those with lower income and those with less money? So Trump says, no, taxes should not be dependent on how much you make. And Biden says, yes, they should be. If you make more money, you should have to pay more taxes. And that just feeds into America's overall welfare and well-being. If you're richer, pay more taxes. If you don't have as much money, you should not be required to pay the same amount as someone who is making higher amounts of income. And this really only affects you if you're making over $400,000 a year, then yes, your taxes are going to be raised. But if you're making less than that, then it isn't really going to have a bad impact on you. In fact, you're going to have to pay less taxes than you would if you were making 400K a year. I'm not really going to go into depth about how much Trump has claimed to have paid in income taxes because I don't know the facts. Trump is saying that he has paid millions of dollars in federal and income taxes, where Biden is agreeing with news reports that are saying that Trump only paid $750 of annual income tax. So I don't know what the truth is. We don't have Trump's official tax records. So I'm not going to make a statement about that, but you can make an opinion on that. But I'm not really going to give my opinion because I don't want to sway you guys one way or another. I just say things based off of facts, and right now we don't know what the facts are about that. So let's move on to where they discussed racism and racial division in America. Biden stated that Trump and his policies are reflective of him pushing for racial tension and racist ideologies. So Biden is basically saying that Trump is racist and he's pushing to implement that into America. And he brought up a statistic where 1 in 1,000 African Americans in the US have died of COVID. And he says this to say that Trump doesn't really care about minorities. He doesn't care about African Americans in this country. He's not pushing to help those who maybe don't have access to better health care, who can't afford those treatments that are required to help you get better when you are diagnosed with coronavirus. So he's basically saying that through Trump's actions, he doesn't care about racial minorities. And as of police brutality, something that a lot of people are saying is that, oh, if Biden wins, he's going to defund the police, our country's going to be a mess, there's going to be riots everywhere. But during this presidential debate, Biden said that violence is never okay, and he wants to restructure the police. He doesn't want to defund them. And that's something that's really important because right now people are saying that Biden is in favor of defunding the police, but he said that he is not. He doesn't believe in defunding the police. He believes that's dangerous. He wants to restructure them, and he wants police to get to know their community and the people that live in the community, and he believes that in doing this, there will be a decrease in crime rate, there will be a decrease in police brutality because they will have that relationship. Police won't be scared when they see an African American because they'll know them. Biden also said that he believes that police forces should be held accountable. So if they perform a racist action or if they are predatory to black minorities, they should be tried. For example, George Floyd. With George Floyd, he had passed away because of police brutality. So Biden is basically saying that those police that perform those racist actions need to be held accountable. They should be tried, and those are unjust actions, is basically what he is saying. So we'll talk about Trump's opinion in this segment in just a second, but I want to bring up something that has been controversial about this debate is when Trump was asked by the moderator to denounce white supremacy, he said, "Who do you want me to address?" And Biden said, Proud Boys, which if you don't know what Proud Boys is, it's a white supremacist group of white males who believe that they are higher than other races. So Biden said, denounce Proud Boys. And Trump said, okay, sure, I'll denounce white supremacy. He didn't actually say, I denounce white supremacy. He just said, sure, I will. So that's where some people are having a controversy of, okay, did he really denounce it or did he not? So I'll allow you to decide for yourself, but he said, sure, I will. When the moderator asked, are you willing to denounce white supremacy right now? He said, sure, I will. So whether you think that that is a valid statement in bringing down white supremacists or not, either way, it's your opinion, and I don't want to push my opinion on you. So he also said, Proud Boys, stand back and stand by. And a lot of people find this very a weird thing to say, because he says stand back, okay, stand back, white supremacists stand back, and then he says stand by. What that means, I don't know. I don't want to make assumptions. Again, I'm going based off of facts, so I'll allow you to develop your own opinion again. But stand by, what does that exactly mean? Does that mean he's going to need them for later? Does that mean they should still be here? It's really just based off of your opinion because it was very unclear as to his intentions of saying that were. He also said that Biden called African Americans super predators. I've not been able to fact check this, I can't find anything about this, but that's just something he brought up that Biden had said before. And a fact is that Trump ended racial sensitivity training, which is basically when you train employees to be sensitive of minorities and to treat people with equality. And he ended that because he thinks it's a racist implementation. So again, develop your own thoughts on that, but do you think it is okay to end racial sensitivity training because it's racist? So do you think it's okay for employers to stop training their employees and people in their corporation to stop learning how to treat racial minorities with equality and respect? And Trump also thinks racism is a party issue. He says that the left is pushing this, and he blames racism and protests on the left wing, which is a lot of blaming and not a lot of problem solving. So again, in this segment, there weren't a lot of discussions by Trump of how he's going to solve the problem of racism. It was more just pushing it onto other people. Next topic, let's discuss climate change. So during this section of the debate, Trump said that he wants beautiful air. I don't really know what he means by that, but he said he wants beautiful air, he wants a beautiful environment, and he blames the old trees for the fires going on in California areas and in Oregon. He said that he blames those states for not cleaning up their forests and that that's the cause of the fires. It isn't a climate change issue. It's a matter of keeping your forest clean and cleaning up old dead trees. Now let's move on to environmental issues and more specifically climate change. So during this segment, the California and Oregon forest fires were brought up, and Trump basically said that climate change is not a factor in these issues. It's a problem of old dead trees not being cleaned, the forest not being cleaned, unkept areas were the cause of these fires. And he believes that planting trees will fix climate change and getting rid of old trees will prevent fires. And he said that California needs to clean their forests and that the science of climate change doesn't have a clear answer. So his answer is to plant more trees and that will solve climate change. And to clean forests will end the forest fires that are currently happening in various states. Still on environmental issues, Biden says that he wants to lower the cost of oil and gas. He wants to accommodate electrical vehicles so that way there will be a decrease in harmful gases being emitted into the air and fossil fuels that are a contributor to the negative outcomes of climate change. So he wants to increase the charging stations for electrical vehicles in order to prompt people to become more aware and more efficient in using electrical vehicles that will decrease the emission of harmful fuels and gases. One of the most surprising things that I found that Biden said is that he does not support the Green New Deal, which was proposed by Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Congresswoman. We'll probably do an episode about her later, but he said that he does not support this, which was very surprising to me because this is contradicting what various news sources have told me and what's on his official campaign. He says that he does support the Green New Deal on his campaign, but during the debate he said that he does not, and instead he supports the Biden plan. He wasn't really able to go in depth about what that is or what it means, but I'm not really sure why he said that because as of previously he said that he does support the Green New Deal and he wants to implement it, but during the debate he said that he does not and he would rather implement the Biden policy, which I'm not sure what that is. And the last segment that we are going to talk about that happened in the debate that was brought up was the topic of a fair election. Trump said that the mail-in ballot system is a disaster and it's unsolicited, it's corrupt, it's ineffective, and that mail-in ballots are a mess and a fraud because they are run by Democrats and they don't urge people to go to the polls, and the polls are less manipulated. He said that he has found ballots with his name on them that were found tampered with or that were thrown out. So he says that the mail-in ballot system is ineffective and it's not a good way to count people's votes, but rather in-person polling systems are better, and he encourages people to go to those as long as they social distance and they are following all the guidelines to keep everyone safe. Biden says that mail ballots are not being manipulated and that people must, if they are going to go in person to polls, they need to social distance. And he says that there are no fraud related to mail-in ballots and that the military has been using them for a long time and they haven't really had any problems with that. So those were kind of the different opinions of that. Trump says mail-in ballots are not accurate and Biden says that they are. Yeah, there's no really way of telling that, but Trump said that he has seen mail-in ballots with his name on them that have been thrown out or that have been manipulated and things like that. Before we end this episode, I just want to give some final statements. I think it's really important to note that not all presidential debates are like this. You have to admit that this one was pretty, if you watched it, it was pretty bad. There was a lot of immaturity between the candidates, a lot of disrespect, and this was kind of my first introduction into presidential debates. This was the first one that I fully watched because I was required to by my AP government class. I am still in high school. I probably would have watched it anyways, but just as a introduction to politics, really, it was a very big turnoff to me and it made politics less appealing. So I think it's a very dangerous thing if you're a younger generation or if this was your first introduction into politics. I want you to know that this isn't usually how presidential debates go. After I watched this one, I went back and watched the one between Obama and Mitt Romney back in 2012. And it was a lot more mature, a lot more productive. They were actually discussing policies, they weren't attacking each other. So I highly recommend you going back and watching old presidential debates if you were really kind of confused by this one or really disgusted in a sense that you were like, is this really what America is about? No, it's not. This one was a very messy debate, and so I highly recommend you going back and watching other ones and just not being completely turned off by politics just because of this one debate. I think that's very important. And yeah. So in closing, I just want to leave you all with a quick quote by Herman Hesse, and it says, "Youth ends when egotism does. Maturity begins when one lives for others."